Hi, a very warm welcome back to the channel of Motorbike Nonsense. Now, I don't know about you, but I love cooking. I'm a modern man. I do all the cooking in my family, but one of my favorite things about it is finding ingredients that shouldn't really work together and then finding that they work very well indeed. And I think there's someone a bit like me deep inside Honda's HQ, because they've gone and taken one ingredient, the engine from the latest Africa Twin, the 1100, and stuck it in a cruiser. Yeah. Slightly odd combo, I think, but I'm going to take you for a walk around, go for a ride, and find out if this, the Honda CMX1100 Rebel, is more like cheese and toothpaste or pork pies dipped in salad cream. It's the pork pies that is the good one there. Go and try it and thank me later for improving your life. But anyway, let's get cracking and do some motorbike stuff. In the Honda CMX1100 Rebel. To be honest, I always thought the Rebel name was a bit weird on a Honda because I'm pretty sure I've never seen a Rebel riding a Honda. But anyway, this is actually quite an affordable bike. It's a smidge over £9,000 for the manual one, and it's about 800 quid more if you want Honda's brilliant dual clutch gearbox. But I'd stick with a manual because this is going to be a high days and happy days Sunday hooning bike, and I'm actually sure Honda would rather I was riding this down Pacific Coast Highway in the blazing sun than in a muddy car park in Surrey. But hey, whatever. Let's quickly talk about some of the options before we really get into it. You can totally change the look of this bike if you stick the optional headlight cowl on, which makes it really quite American looking. Then you get a diamond stitched seat, you can get heated grips or nylon saddlebags with waterproof linings, and a pillion backrest as well. In terms of colours, it's classic Honda. There's not a huge amount of choice. You can get it in this Bordeaux red metallic, which to be honest, under grey, grizzly UK skies is a bit dull, or black, and that's pretty much it. You get LED headlights, which I'll cut a shot in of them on because the battery's about to go flat and I don't want to run it dry. It's got a 13.6 litre fuel tank, it weighs 223 kilos, and it has got a super low seat height of 700 mil. Anyone would be able to get on this bike and pretty much flat foot it. You've got mid controls, they're not too forward, they're not too far back, they're pretty generously sized, and they don't get too much in your way when you're paddling it around either. So yeah, the key is there, and there's a steering lock over here on the headstock, so it's kind of classic cruiser setup really from that point of view. The engine, well, we should probably talk about the engine. Now, it is from the 1100 Africa Twin, and when Honda brought that bike out, I rode it and I thought, this feels so much better than the previous Africa Twin with the 1000cc engine. It has a 270-degree firing order, and it just sounded, I know, more characterful. So it actually does feel like a good fit for a cruiser. Now, this one's got a heavier crank than in the Africa Twin. It's a bit lumpier, but I think that's what you want in a cruiser. And it actually sounds pretty good. It's pretty bassy. The exhaust isn't the prettiest thing in the world, but you know, who makes a bike with a pretty exhaust these days? If you want to know the numbers, it's 1084cc, it's obviously a parallel twin, it's got 86 horsepower at 7,000 RPM and 98 Newton meters of torque at 4,750. So yeah, it's got a lot of stonk down low, just like you'd want in a cruiser. So on paper at least, it might not be a V-twin, but it should work well in the context of this. Now, in terms of the chassis components, it's fairly rudimentary, to be honest, and that's kind of why the price is where it's at. But it's got a single disc, but with a radially mounted caliper, and it's got loads of bite. And to be honest, I think this has better braking feel than some Triumphs with two discs, but that might just be a personal thing for me. Yeah, it is basically quite a simple thing, and that's why it's affordable, really. Now, it has got some electronics. It's got a USB-C socket, it's got cruise control, it's got a digital dashboard, as you would expect, and it's got some riding modes as well. It's got a customizable one, you can change the throttle response, the engine braking, and the traction control as well. But yeah, just look at the grips, kind of tells you what you need to know. It is fairly simple. You've got a mode selector, you've got the indicators, which are easy to find, take note Triumph, and it's got the cruise control button and the uppy, downy, speedy thing there for the cruise control. That is a technical term. Stop me if I'm getting too complicated. But yeah, it is really quite straightforward. So let's hop on, go for a ride and see if you should be considering one of these. And spoiler, I kind of want one, and I'm not really a cruiser guy. It's just dead simple and dead fun. Right, let's head into the fog and go for a ride. Alright, let's jump on the Rebel and go for a ride. Now, in my haste, I neglected to mention tyre sizes. It's got a 130 section front, so it's quite wide, and that's an 18-inch wheel. And it's got a 180 width rear on a 16-inch wheel. And I don't know if you can see that, but the chain is blacked out. It's quite cool. It's a black chain. Just goes to show that it's got some attention to detail despite the price. Now anyway, let's sling a leg over. The seat is so low, it's lovely. An easy reach down to the key, side stand flip up, and then thumb the starter. And it burbles into life. It is not an anodyne parallel twin, this. If you closed your eyes and didn't know anything about it and didn't look at the spec sheet, you wouldn't think it's a big burbly V-twin, but you think it's something a bit special rather than just an adventure bike engine. So anyway, let's easily clutch out and go and enjoy some very muddy roads. We'll do some twisties, we'll do some dual carriageways, and now we're going to talk about the practical things. I'm going to have to leave my visor up because it's so foggy. But yeah, the ergos on this are really quite straightforward, quite easy, and they're not intimidating if you've never ridden a cruiser before, because you've got mid-control, so your feet aren't all the way forward. I don't really get on with bikes with foot forward controls. It just feels a bit alien, takes a long time to get used to it, and it doesn't give you confidence in corners. This, I don't know, it just feels like a naked bike really, except your arms are stretched out a bit more towards the handlebars. The mirrors are good, they're round, they're quite basic, but they stay in place well and they don't get vibey. It's just very Honda, to be honest. Everything has been thought about. Good morning, Mrs. Cow. I presume you're Mrs. Cow. You've not been ravaged by the bull yet. Right, let's head up here. Now obviously you have traction control and all that jazz, so you don't have to really worry about the grease on the road too much. It's just yeah, get on and go. I do wish this one had heated grips because it is November now, but you know, it's probably my fault for wearing sports bike gloves on a cruiser. There's no quick shifter or blipper, though I did just do a clutchless downshift then because I forgot about that briefly. Yeah, let's talk about the noise. As you gun it, you get a pleasing snarl from the airbox. It's actually really quite enjoyable. It's not obviously a bellowing loud exhaust note because it's Euro 5 compliant, and it doesn't sound like a Harley, but it does sound cool. It kind of has the right vibe, if you get what I mean, that noise. Yeah, tank feels nice and narrow between my knees. I'm pretty comfortable, to be honest. I haven't done many motorway miles on this, I'll be honest, and I think I would get a sore butt after a while just because I'm slightly hunched over being 6'3", but I still fit on it, and I've been out on this for an hour, 2 hours, and the seat does start to slightly hammer at your tailbone a little bit because it's a cruiser. Although it has got semi-decent suspension travel for a cruiser, it still sends most of the vibrations up your spine. But it's more comfortable than, say, a Ducati Diavel, and I know it's not in the same ballpark, but that's the most recent thing I've ridden with this riding position, and I'd rather ride this for long journeys, to be honest. Right, it is low, so I haven't got a huge great view out over these hedges like I would on the Africa Twin, but it's a cruiser, it is low. Right. Whoa, it's got some torque. It has got some torque, this engine. Sorry, I'll talk about the engine now. Really, really strong pull. To be honest, I've left it in sport mode. Apart when I'm in town, I'll knock it back to standard, just because over really bumpy roads around town, the throttle can get a little bit snatchy in sport mode. But yeah, standard's fine. It's just got this lovely lump of torque at 4,000 RPM. That makes it feel really, really quick. So yeah, don't go thinking that, you know, 86 horsepower is going to feel tame. It's the torque that really does the talking, if you get what I mean. Excuse the awful cliche. What am I going on about today? But yeah, it's a very satisfying bike to ride. The gearbox is super smooth, what we expect from a Honda, so you don't really miss the quick shifter and blipper, not that you'd normally have one on a cruiser anyway, because it's so damn good. The throttle response is really good. It feels like an old cable throttle when you're blipping downshifts and going up the box. It's just a really lovely connection between the throttle and the gearbox and the engine and your foot. You feel at one with this bike very quickly. Alright, let's head out here. I'm going to cut now and jump to some dual carriageway. I think that's a fake speed camera sign. Okie dokie, I'm coming up on my dual carriageway where I can do 70 miles an hour with impunity. It turns out that wasn't a fake speed camera sign. There was a policeman and he waved his hands at me, presumably to congratulate me on my choice of motorbike. Anyway, out of there. Yeah, 70 miles an hour on the CMX1100 Rebel, and it's fine, to be honest. I can stick cruise control on with my right thumb and easily actually hook it up to the speed I want. Hang on, let's do it. There we go, 70 miles an hour on the cruise control. And actually, unlike many other bikes, you don't really have to take your hand off the throttle to get to the cruise control button. You don't have to do all this kind of stuff, it's just easy to reach. Riding position. I do feel like a bit of a sail on a ship in the wind now, because I am slightly exposed to the elements, very exposed to the elements, but you buy a bike like this expecting that, and there are two different types of screens you can fit to this as options. There's a little diddy one which goes here to flick air over your head, and there's more of a bikini wraparound thing that covers the handlebars a bit as well, and gives it the American look I was talking about. And I think that would turn this into a proper long distance mile muncher, because although it's only got a relatively small 13.5 litre tank, you get 144 miles for a full tank. At least that's what it told me when I filled this up the other day. I've been averaging 50 mpg without really trying. It's an efficient engine, so yeah, you could do distances on this and it wouldn't cost you a bomb either. My lower back is already starting to ache though. It is just because I'm 6'3" and I'm a little bit hunched in my knees because I'm tall, but yeah, that's classic cruiser things. However, when we get to the twisties in a second, if it's not too wet, I'll be able to show you where this bike really shines. It handles really, really well, so let's go and check that out. Right, we're about to get to the Twisty National Speed Limit Road, where hopefully it's going to be dry enough to go around some corners slightly quickly, but I can't promise anything. It's 12 degrees and my thighs are cold. It was the wrong day to wear jeans. Anyway, we're about to go from 30 to 60 in standard mode. Let's just go full throttle. Oh, yeah, that's 60. It is really, really quick in the meat of the revs when you give it some stick. Really, I think this engine is really good. It is really strong, and it gives you all the sensations that you really want from a cruiser. Now, the thing that surprised me, I went out for a good old hour and a half around the country lanes on this the other day when it was drier than this, and it handles a bit like a naked bike, to be honest. Obviously the riding position isn't a naked bike riding position, but it tips into corners really quickly, really nicely. It's not unsettling, but it just kind of rolls in quicker than you'd think, and it's got ground clearance for days. It does eventually deck out, but by that point you're committed to corners, and to be honest, you drag your heels first. But if you like that kind of thing, it really encourages you to stick it on its ear. It's got a brilliant chassis. It's very Honda. It is very Honda. I can't believe the amount of fun that I had on this the other day on a sunny day on a twisty road. I think I would have pretty much kept up with most of my friends on their adventure bikes. It's not really wanting for anything. It does get actually a little bit pitter-pattery when you're leant over on the side of the tyre. You can feel the chassis flexing and moving about a bit, but it's not really unnerving. It's kind of just the nature of the geometry, I guess. But yeah, it's so greasy, I'm not going to go full throttle out there. But yeah, what I would say is that brake, although it's got a good initial bite, you have to pull it harder than you think to do proper fast stops. But you know, it's a single disc, there's only so much it can do. At least it's got bite and confidence. You do get the hazards flashing when you do hard braking, and that happens sooner than I would like, but you know, that's Honda, isn't it? Safety Honda. Right, let's stick it in sport mode a second. Use sport. Right, sport mode. There's a car behind me. Let's go fast. Yeah, I mean, you do actually kind of want to rev it to the 8,000 RPM red line. It's got guts. It's got guts, this. Yeah, don't underestimate this bike. That's probably going to be my conclusion, really. Don't underestimate this. Go and give it a ride, even if you're only bi-curious about it, because it handles way better than you would think. It puts you in a good frame of mind, because all cruisers tend to, the relaxed riding position, watching the world go by, not necessarily riding as if your hair's on fire. It's a Honda. It's going to go on forever. It's properly built. It's got lovely paintwork, albeit in a slightly duff colour, I think. But yeah, there's honestly
so little on this bike, it's quite a nice pure riding experience, and it's different. It is just different if you're not into cruisers. If you are wanting a Harley, then obviously it's not going to tick that box for you because it's got the wrong badge on it. But for me, this feels like a properly thought out motorbike. I just hope people go and buy them, because this is a cool thing. The big Rebel is here, and it's rebelliously good. It doesn't really mean anything, but it sounded good. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this utter tripe. Hit like if you've liked it, hit like if you haven't liked it, because psychology, and also subscribe, and in the comments, can you call me Soichiro-san? Thank you very much. So he wasn't really Soichiro-san, was he? He was probably Honda-san. I don't know much Japanese, but I think I know that. Anyway, from this Japanese cruiser to another, thank you, goodbye. Oh, I forgot to say, it has a fuel gauge. You can rest happy now, internet people. Also tells you your range on a digital readout as well, so yeah. You can see I've got 93 miles left. That's gone down quite quickly from 144, so perhaps it's only 110, 120 to a tank. Whatever.